Kia ora, talofa, namaste, haramai, and welcome to the Niche Cast, coming at you on May the 28th. And we are here to talk all about State of Origin. We've also got a bit of Super Rugby, a little bit of Premiership Netball, and of course, recapping the IPL. Obviously, we're not
Can
going to
we
do
do
that.
some English football that doesn't involve Chris Wood as well?
Why?
Well, just on top of all the other stuff that normally gets covered that, we're out here sweeping away.
We're sweeping up the car park of Aotearoa Sporting Matters for our Niche Cast. Big up yourself. Love yourself. We're out here doing our thing. We're from the niche-case.com. And today, there's no State of Origin. There's no Super Rugby. There's no Premiership Netball. And there damn sure ain't no Premier League football or FA Cup that does not involve a Kiwi. Because that's what we do here at the Niche Case. It's just a lot of rugby league, a lot of cricket, a lot of football, a bit of basketball. Sometimes we even get a bit of athletics and stuff like that. No, we've got to sharpen up on our Olympic sports. We're getting into Olympic mode as well, which is a sneaky one to keep an eye on. So, how are you feeling about the Olympics?
Well, I did write about in the newsletter a little while ago when they announced the athletics team, which I think is our biggest ever or something like that. They say that every time basically the Olympics expand from one Olympics to the next. They're always just getting bigger until at some point they'll get too big. I think we might have already passed that point, but I've had the Olympic football stuff in focus a little bit because football Ferns have games coming up. This is their last window before the actual Olympics, so the last chance for players to impress before the Olympic squad. You got the All Whites are sort of it's under 23s with the All Whites, but a good chunk of the All Whites are still under 23s. Will be available for that. Plus, you get the 3 overage players, so there is a little bit of jostling going on there in those realms. And yeah, Olympics is always fun, isn't it? It's the best thing about the Olympics is they do the whole thing, all of these sports, and they get it done in like 2 weeks. It's not one of these like 6-week World Cup type tournaments. They just get the whole thing done in 2 weeks. It's just non-stop action right up until the point where it's too much anymore. Like as a viewer, beyond 2 weeks, it's getting pretty hectic. 2 weeks, you can muster that. That's what I love about the Olympics. They get in there and then they get out. And it is coming up. It's I think July crossing over a bit with August, something like that.
And we will be here for it. Obviously, we got our big 4 sports that we do love to talk about, but when it's Olympics time, we do stretch out the parameters, bit of hockey, bit of athletics, cycling, rowing, all that good stuff that we like to see. Maybe even the Tall Blacks beating up Luka Doncic as well. Or that's the qualifying.
Maybe.
That's the qualifying stage. So they will beat up Luka Doncic to get into the Olympics. We know that for damn sure. As I said, we're from the niche-case.com. Fresh on the website, we've got the latest Flying Kiwis yarn that will be live Tuesday night. We're recording this Tuesday morning. We've also got the Kiwi NRL Spotlight extravaganza popping off. I'm just trying to go hard with the Kiwi NRL angles during State of Origin. So obviously Moala Graham Talfa made his Warriors debut. He played his second NRL game for the Warriors against the Dolphins, and we'll get into that in a jiffy, but whipped up the Kiwi NRL spotlight for him, as well as Nofahu White from the weekend. The Roosters had a big win over the Raiders, so I've got a Kiwi NRL spotlight on Nofahu White and Moala Graham Talfa. We've also got Paul Roach, Tane Tuaupiki, Josiah Karapani, Connolly Lemuelu. Kiwi NRL lads are on the rise. You can read about the Tall Blacks Olympic qualifying campaign on our website. You can check in with a big old deep dive into Black Caps T20 World Cup cricket. Stats and bits and pieces are available on our website, theniche-case.com. If you still want to read about the Wellington Phoenix, you can do. It's on our website. And if you want all the latest yarns, you want the Warriors Monday morning recap, you want the domestic football roundup on a Monday morning, You want the latest from the world of Flying Kiwis footy. You want NBL stats. You want NRL women's signings from Aotearoa, because guess what? Forget about all the schoolboy rugby league, NRL coming in and signing all these schoolboy rugby league players, because that's like 5 years too late. I've seen a couple of those yarns recently, and you're 5 years too late. Like, you got to catch up. It's already happening. It's already done. But I mean, most of these NRL women's teams are signing players from Super Rugby as well. So the takeover's live and in full effect. And yesterday in our newsletter on Substack, thenishcase.substack.com, I dropped a bit that the Knights had signed Grace Kukutai and Isabella Waterman. Both played Super Rugby this year. Funnily enough, and this is like, I consider this the holiest levels of niche case. Grace Kukutai played netball, then she switched to rugby union to play Super Rugby. Now she's signed to NRLW. And that is the niche case right there. Like, we don't care about netball. We don't care about rugby union. But the NRLW teams are signing players from those sports in Aotearoa. And Isabella Waterman, shout out to her. She was playing rugby league for Sydenham in Christchurch. So now they are both off to the Knights. And I've got the NRLW signings tracker as part of that newsletter yesterday via Substack. Also in the newsletter yesterday via Substack, I dropped the Kiwi NRL Young'uns team. And I'll just chuck it out there here before we get further. Keanu Kinney at fullback, Dean Mariner and Will Warbrick on the wings, Matthew Tomoko and Rocco Berry at the centres. Halves, we had to get a little bit funky. So we got Taintua Piki at halfback, Dejan Arce, number 6. Our middle forwards are Griffin Neem, Leo Thompson and Nofahu White. At hooker, we got Paul Roach. On the edges, Jordan Ricky and Jacob Laban. Coming off the bench, Xavier Willison, Connolly Lemuelu, Alec MacDonald, and Zion Mai'uu. And just for a giggle, we've got a squad as well. So we've got Raymond Tuaimalo Vainga, Ali Leotawa, Josiah Karapani, Moala Graham Taufa, Ata Mariota, Wiramu Greg, and Simi Sasangi. I love that team. I love Aotearoa. And I love sport. If you are enjoying the Niche Cage content, the website, the clips, the podcasts, the newsletter, you can support us straight up the guts on Patreon, patreon.com/EL Niche Cage. We do an extra podcast every week for the Patreon whānau. That is the subscriber podcast, little bonus VIP section of the Niche Cage. And you can access that through Patreon or with a paid Substack subscription. The newsletter sign up is completely free. You get 2 newsletters every Monday and Friday. You know the vibe. You know what we're coming hard with. We're coming hard with rugby league, cricket, football, basketball, and the rest. You won't get none of that shit anywhere else except the Nichecation, specifically the Monday, Friday newsletter. But we also have the subscriber podcast that you can upgrade your free Substack subscription to access, or just head on over to Patreon. It's all there for you. And the day after the newsletter publishes, Monday, Friday evenings, the next day we copy the newsletter straight into Patreon as well. So the Patreon's just the hub there. You can upgrade to a paid Substack subscription if that's your vibe. Otherwise, you can just buy us a coffee or do whatever else you want as well. We're out here doing our best, and we appreciate everyone's support, whether you are funding the Niche Cage or if you're just enjoying the content. If you're here with us and you're also doing your best in this weird, wonderful life. What have I missed? The website, newsletter, Patreon, it's all there. Righto. Let's get some mindfulness.
Mindfulness today coming courtesy of Henry David Thoreau. Our life is frittered away by detail. Simplify.
It's a bit weird though. I've already repeated like 10 different words for the intro, so I just need to simmer down. That is a bit quirky because We're all about the details of the sport. We got the Warriors details, the Phoenix details, the Black Caps details. So like we come with the Aotearoa sporting details, but we also just keep it simple, I think.
Yeah, and also we stick to the details that are relevant rather than whipping up a whole bunch of details on stuff that is going to be distracting for the reader slash listener, but also distracting for us if we're just getting caught up in the weeds of other stuff while we're trying to work on one thing, like, one thing at a time kind of thing. That's simplifying too. It doesn't mean being less detailed. It just means being detailed in a specific way, not in 300 different ways at once where you don't actually get anything done as well. That's also a manner of simplifying. Respect to Mr. Thoreau as well for using the word fritted. I don't know if that is, I guess it's a real word. It just makes me think of like mussel fritters or something, but whatever. must be nearly lunchtime.
Righto, we also have some musical jam, and I'm going to keep it simple. I've just got two big musical jam thingy-majigs. The first, and I had to put this song on the background in my headphones as we're talking, because I think this is the greatest song ever. Like, that's just how it makes me feel. And this is, I know it's a bit in part of a wider theme of the past few months. We've had the ghost space. I feel like ghosts have been part of our recording process. Not seeing ghosts, but we have talked about seeing ghosts and trying to defend ghosts and all that stuff. Hallucinations. There is a song called Ghost Rhythm. Alternatively, Ghost Rhythm. And it is from the one and only Christoph Alchuento and his latest project, Dubs from the Neighborhood. You can go on Bandcamp, it's right there for you. There's 4 songs available to listen to now as like a pre-order situation. You've got Another Scorcher, Performer Dub, Pawari, and Ghost Rhythm. Ghost Rhythm is an absolute monster jam. Like, even if you're just half Pākehā, half Palangi, you can't dance, you got no rhythm, this song will make you wiggle. It's a fantastic jam. Big fan of Christoph Alchuento, one of the greatest musical acts from Aotearoa. Troy Kingi, Fat Freddy's Drop. Insert other... Who else you got? South of the Bombays for the old What's the Time, Mr. Wolf? That was a big jam. Anyone else you want to put in that spotlight?
I think we might be here a long time if we're doing that, but I don't know. Marlon Williams pops to mind. The Beths are doing big things overseas. So we could go. The thing is, we could go a wide scope of genres, not just a wide scope of artists here. So,
So I do love Christoph Alchuento. Very excited for his new project, Dubs from the Neighborhood. And if you do get a chance to listen to that project and or Ghost Rhythm, chuck it on. It will lively up your day. The other little musical tangent that I've been exploring is this geezer by the name of Big Hit. Hip-hoppers might know of Hit Boy, who was a fantastic producer. His father is Big Hit, and he's been in and out of jail in the old Los Angeles area, and he's out of jail at the moment. He's doing some great musical things, and they have him and Hit Boy have a project with The Alchemist. So obviously had to give it a listen. And it is amazing. Like, the songs coming out with Big Hit are just awesome. So if you're into your little gang banging music, you want to feel hard and like, yeah, rah 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 rah, you want to get into that sort of mindset, or you're listening to some drill or just some gangster rap and you want to feel aggressive, whatever you're listening to is all right, but it's not Big Hit. You need to check out Big Hit and just get in tune with Big Hit. He's just, it's infectious, it's entertaining. You got precise, high quality production because Hit Boy's awesome, The Alchemist is awesome, but then you've got this big hit chap, and his delivery, his style, the maturity, the experience, the insights. I can't stop listening to Big Hit, and that is one of my favorite musical things from overseas. Obviously, we got the dubs from the Aotearoa neighborhood as well via Christoph El Truento. If you search Big Hit, you might see Drugs Are, Gank Move, you might see Foreclosure, you might see Black and Whites, which is the name of the project. That's all like new releases, but there's another one, Red Lotion, which is also just a groovy tune as well from a previous project. So shout out Big Hit, shout out Christoph El Truento. What's your musical jam over there?
Well, the newest Troy Kingi album has been announced, which means the lead single is through, and he's, I think, up to his eighth one of his sort of 10 different albums and 10 different genres in 10 different years. So Troy Kingi himself covers that variety of genres for Kiwi musicians. The latest one, he went out to Joshua Tree in California and recorded in the desert, making sort of like, I think what they would refer to as like desert rock or stoner rock, or kind of like sort of Queens of the Stone Age type vibes. So lead single's out, only the lead single. Pretty curious to see how that tracks. Earth Tongue's new album must be out soon at some point. They got a couple of singles going. I'm hyped for that one, but I've mentioned that before. There's two jazz albums that I listen to a lot. One is Kamasi Washington, who I think is fairly well known these days. His latest thing is out, and it's long, it's full of him doing saxophony stuff, so sweet as. And then the other one is from English fella called Shabaka, who is in a group called Sons of Kemet, who are fairly famous, but this is his first album by like his own name. The album is called Perceive Its Beauty, Acknowledge Its Grace, which is a great album title, especially for a jazz album that's largely made around, like, I think he is also a sax player or a trumpet player, or I don't know. He has one of the brass instruments he plays normally, but he doesn't play it basically at all on this album. He just picked up a different instrument and is like, I'm going to be a flute player now. And so he did. And there's another famous dude who decided to be a flute player and put out an album earlier this year. So Andre 3000 does guest on one of these tracks. I think Shabaka was also on his album. So they've done a bit of swap specs and back and forth there. This one is a different, like, other than that, it's quite different to the 3K album, which is very ambient, kind of, sounds like the songs are just being carried along on the air. This one is more grounded, a bit more melodic. Fantastic, like absolutely brilliant background vibes, or just like foreground vibes, either or. And yeah, what else would I shout out? The other one I was going to say is Ndu Mokhtar, who's a guitarist from Niger, who's broken through in like Western music for the last couple, and he does sort of like, it's half traditional stuff and it's half absolutely not traditional stuff, where he's just doing like Guitar Hero, Black Sabbath impersonations, or like classic Rocky type stuff. So that mix of those two things is outrageously good. And his new album is it's called Funeral for Justice, and it's a lot of it is about like modern colonialism in his country, which was colonized by France. And so there's a lot of that going on in the lyrics, but the lyrics are in like Tuareg or whatever the language is, his native language. So if you're just listening as a Western audience, you're not catching any of that context. You're just catching outrageously good electric guitar vibes and solos here, there, and everywhere, and riffs all over the place. But it does have a very serious message as well, which he's managed to package both of those things together in a fantastic package. Like to be able to do that, where you do like the serious and then also the dance worthy stuff, is pretty nuts. And this is Ndu Mokhtar's album is called Funeral for Justice, which is also a pretty good title.
Can I quiz you here. So I've got the dubs from the neighborhood credits, and I'm going to ask you if you recognize these names, because you may do, and then we'll see if we're on the same page with what I'm thinking. Guitar. You've got Eagle Master Selecto. And on vocals, one of the credited vocalists is the Hongi Slicker. Do you recognize those names? And if yes or no, who do you think? Can we just speculate who they might be? Because they might be some very credible guitarist and vocalist who is not the person who I'm thinking of. Maybe you're thinking the same person.
They just sound like characters from Mad Max to me or something like that. Yeah, what were the Hongi Slicker and Eagle Scout?
Eagle Master Selecto.
Eagle Master Selecto. Yeah, I don't know. That sounds very like those might be like artist names that they've been going by the whole time, but it sounds kind of like we don't want our label to know that we're guesting on this other dude's thing, so let's give it the euphemisms.
To me, it sounds like I'm just getting Troy Kingy vibes from those names.
I did the Eagle one, definitely.
I mean, the Hongi Slicker is pretty Troy Kingy as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and he is a dude who's been known to like slip in and out of characters and stuff with his work. Maybe there's a mystery in there that we might have just solved.
I don't know. It's just pure speculation. Who
or
knows?
Not, yeah.
One other thing that I have been meaning to ask you about, we've had this, it's quite a prickly situation in Australia with Ulysses Davia and Clayton Lewis and some other Jerry who got caught up in not a match fixing scandal, but some weird betting activities.
Spot fixing, I think.
Spot fixing, there we go. The odd bowler no ball, you make bets on it, it's easy mahi. But it's not easy mahi because usually you get caught and there's quite a price to pay.
Also, they were like, because they listed a couple of games where they did it, and a couple of them they didn't get the yellow cards. So it's not such easy mahi because they weren't able to get booked when they were supposed to in a couple of those games.
And because I found this clip on Twitter a few weeks ago as this was happening, I just searched Clayton Lewis, and there was a clip from Sky Sport. And obviously I'm not going to be able to find it hard and fast right now. Should have probably pulled it up earlier. But it was a clip from Sky Sport, and I just found this hilarious, bit ridiculous, and just so important that even though I forgot to bring it up, I've got to bring it up now. He's on the football show. You got Goran Paladin and the big bro Jacob Spoonley. And old mate Goran gives Clayton Lewis a yellow card for leaving the Wellington Phoenix. Here it is. Sky Sport New Zealand. Clayton Lewis gets a yellow card for leaving the Wellington Phoenix on the Kiwi Football Fix. It's all a bit of a giggle. They're having a laugh. Taking the piss. And a year later, he's kind of in a situation for getting yellow cards. Not at the Wellington Phoenix. It was I was absolutely baffled to see this clip on the Twitters. It's still there. It's still there, and it still is extremely weird to see that in action in hindsight of what we've experienced over the past 4 weeks, I'd say.
Yeah, as far as I know, the spot fixing stuff is only this season. And there was another one actually, because they said that was Devere was sort of like not the ringleader, but the guy who's like the in for the actual ringleaders who are the bookies organizing this stuff. They said they were from South America. It wasn't because he's Mexican, but it was apparently a South American setup. And Lucas Paqueta from West Ham recently like since then has gotten big trouble for doing the exact same thing, like spot fixing yellow cards in the Premier League. And he's from Brazil, so there's also a South American link there, which is curious. I don't know if they're related, but it's obviously part of the same underground bookie kind of ecosystem, if not the same organization. But yeah, it does feel maybe that ceremonial yellow card for leaving the Phoenix was like the gateway drug. You know, it got him started down a spiral that he couldn't get himself out of, and some dark places. Very unfortunate because he's a good player who was always very enjoyable to watch, but unfortunately, you make mistakes like that and you fall off the scene. But the thing, because it's obviously very disappointing to see that happen from a personal standpoint, like to see a person's life upended like that and like consequences for bad actions, bad decisions, whatever. But I will admit I had like a feeling as that happened of next man up, if that makes sense. Like just from a football coverage of it, like, oh well, he's not going to be picked in all white squads for the near thing. Oh well, someone else steps up. Like there's depth enough there to where if you make a mistake, you don't necessarily get that spot back. You know what I mean? Like it's not something that is going to negatively affect the All Whites because they just pick someone else and move on. I don't know if I'm quite explaining that right, but there's that other angle of this of like the consequences beyond himself. But I kind of don't know that those are consequences beyond himself. It's just his own thing he has to deal with now, where the All Whites move on, the A-League moves on. You've taken yourself out of that equation by doing something silly, and that's the world keeps turning.
That's usually how I approach the coverage as well. Like, if you get caught on that kind of stuff, you just stop being talked about. It's just like, see you later.
Yeah, basically.
Like, you don't necessarily have to be like, oh, you're such a shit person, or casting like our moral high ground onto that person, because we're all shit people. We all do shit things. It happens. And if it's your child, you don't necessarily want them to receive this astounding punishment that you'd put onto someone else. So you try to be a bit more mindful about it, but then you're like, well, you're not relevant right now, so we'll just talk about people who are relevant. I think for a lot of these athletes and people, that is kind of a little, not a punishment, but it is kind of a factor. And it's the same when you leave rugby league and go to rugby union. Because like, there's another player from New Zealand who is going to be pretty damn good, and they're just going to keep rocking and rolling, and you're going to drift off into the oblivion of rugby union. And people are going to stop caring about you. And that's just what happens. And you also mentioned the next man up mentality. I think the Warriors have a bit of that next man up mentality. But as of you were alluding to the next man up culture, the next man up team building exercise, where you trust the next person, man or woman, to do the job in your team. I've also brought this other angle to the next man up mentality, where it's like, we need the next runner. So it's less about team building and culture and more about on the field, usually rugby league, you need a next man up. Who's your next man up to run the ball? And I was like, I wasn't getting a good read of that next man up situation with the Warriors when they were losing. But in my interpretation of the next man up, which is an on the field capacity, the game against the Dolphins was like invigorating. And you can, like, it was laid out clearly against the Dolphins, because Dylan Watanese-Lesniak's taking a run. What does he do? He runs like a psycho. Who's taking the next run? Maybe Ed Kosi, maybe Marcelo Montoya, maybe Mawala Graham-Talfa, who is basically Ed Kosi but faster. And then you've got Bunty Afoa, accelerating into the line. You got Mitchell Barnett bursting into the line. It was like, this is what I like. This is what I like with my next man up running perspective. And you might see it with the Dragons, but it's like sometimes the next runner. Well, you'll see it because it might not be there. The next runner doesn't dent the line. The next runner doesn't run fast into the line. The next runner is driven back. But against the Dolphins, and I think there was a bit of against the Panthers, it's usually there whenever a team's playing good footy. And you're like, oh, I want to talk about the Broncos-Titans game as well. But it's like, okay, Reece Walsh is pretty quick. He's running over to this space. Then you got Colbo. Then you got Mariner. You got Karapani, Willison, Carrigan, Payne Haas. It's like every run is just brutal or challenging. And that's the next man up angle that I think about. And it was there with the Warriors because it was like, who's your next runner? And they always had someone running with vigor. And also, to update something else, everyone loves to run it straight, right? Everyone loves to watch a run it straight. But I was watching that game with the Warriors defeating the Dolphins. I was like, whether it was Watene Zelezniak, whether it was Bunty Afoa, whether it was Mitchell Barnett, it's like one thing to run it straight, but it's a different beast when you accelerate into the line. When you speed up into the collision. Because you can run it straight just jogging up into the defensive line, right? Like, as long as you run in a straight line, you're running it straight. But Bunty Afoa at Mount Smart, and I think, because when you're watching it on TV, when you're watching it at the stadium, you can see it. You can see the player speeding up into the defensive line. And that's where you generate the buzz. Like, that's where Bunty Afoa starts to really generate his cult hero status. And
it's them harder than they hit you.
Yeah, and you can only hit them harder if you're speeding up into the collision. It's, I don't want to encourage anyone outside the NRL to do it because it's like, it seems diabolical.
Professionals only.
Yeah, it's definitely a professionals only situation. But that is a little nuance of when you're watching someone run it straight, and I'm watching Mitchell Barnett or Bunty Afoa, Watene Zelezniak, that is the energy that can be felt by the crowd. And that's where you start to generate that hype and the buzz that we saw from the Warriors crowd at Mount Smart in their win over the Dolphins. All of that is a lot more interesting when the Warriors are playing in front of big crowds at Mount Smart Stadium. And last year, the Warriors were pushing for the 20,000 mark. So here's just a quick roll through of some of their crowds last year at Mount Smart Stadium. 23,000, 22,000, 24,000, 19,000, 24,000, 25,000. 26,000 for the finals game last year. Then we go to this season, and by the looks of it, all 5 home games at Mount Smart have drawn at least 23,000 people. So 23,000 is now the benchmark for the Warriors at Mount Smart Stadium. We got day games, we got night games, we got all sorts of times, all sorts of days in that mix there. And they are getting over 23,000 people at every home game. So obviously that's a big salute to the Warriors faithful at the temple, at the Mount Smart Temple. But it also tells you about the Warriors business, right? So we touched on this in the subscriber podcast, maybe in the niche cast last week as well. You get all these Sydney clubs and Aussie clubs, and they always talk about, oh, we got so much money and we're all this and all that. The Warriors, I reckon you put them up alongside, like, they're not quite at the Broncos level, because obviously the Broncos, they can get 40, 50,000 people just for their NRL games at the Suncorp. But if you're consistently getting over 23,000 people at your home games in the NRL, you're immediately in the top tier. And if you're on the top tier for attendances, you're making a bit of money. So do not view the Warriors as some sort of, here to fill in the numbers. Not competing with the big boys. The Warriors are the big boys. They're the big boys as far as NRL business goes, but obviously no one in Sydney is going to say that. No one in Australia is going to say that. But when you combine the big crowds, the sponsorship, the fandom, I think the Warriors are bringing a lot to the NRL at the moment, and that is amplified by some of the heartiest, grittiest wins we've seen from the Warriors over the past 2 weeks, beating up the Panthers at Suncorp Stadium last week, and then the win over the Dolphins and Mount Smart. I think the fact that they were at Mount Smart, the fact that the team was even weaker than the team that beat the Panthers. Like, the Dolphins aren't quite as good as the Panthers, but they're fairly decent. I reckon that win against the Dolphins was better. Because it was at Mount Smart. You had game day changes. Like with Tane Tuapiki dropping out, Shans Nickel-Crookstar dropping out. And it was a big performance from the Warriors. The first, well, not the first, because this is probably, I've talked a few wrinkles already. With a debut, keep getting that wrong, because he debuted with the Roosters. But this proves my point. Moala Graham-Talf has come up from reserve grade. And I've got to put it out there. None of these players coming up from reserve grade for the Warriors are plodders. Like, they're not battlers. And we only need to look at Moala Graham-Talf as the latest example. Because he was recruited by the Roosters while he was still at school in Auckland. And he was recruited by the Roosters to play SG ball and all Jersey flag and all that stuff because he and his twin brother Lani is playing for Mariston, the Fox Memorial as well. So if he wants to develop, there's that opportunity as well. But he's got his bro Moala holding it down for the whānau. He made a lot of New Zealand Rugby League rep teams in Aotearoa. That's why the Roosters recruit you, right? Because you're good at rugby league. Paul Roach comes in at hooker. Well, what's his history? I don't know. He played New Zealand Schoolboys Rugby Union. He seems pretty talented. Jacob Laban, Zion Maiu'u. Like, these dudes who are stepping up for the Warriors are very talented. Like, they're not just battlers from reserve grade who have been called up because there's injuries, suspensions, unavailabilities. These dudes have earned promotion to the NRL. And they are good enough to play NRL. And we have seen it. Like, we've seen Paul Roach play hooker against the Panthers at a high level. He only played 10 minutes, and I was like, bro, Coach Andrew Webster, you sweet, bro? Up to. You just pulled Paul Roach off after 10 minutes? Like, it seems like something you might do. You've done stuff like that before. But then we hear Paul Roach got injured. That's cool. I don't mind that. So it's like, okay. But Paul Roach, he's playing at a high level. Jacob Laban, what have we seen from the last 2 games in these 2 wins? He's coming off the bench. He's playing edge forward. He's playing left edge. He's playing right edge. Against the Panthers, he even had to play a bit of centre when Marcelo Montoya got his head knocked. Okay, we're going to put Tamaire Martin in at halfback. Like, Tamaire Martin was one of the best youngsters when he was breaking through with the Tigers across the whole NRL. Like, the hype around Tamaire Martin when he was emerging in the NRL was immense. Like, that is to say, a lot of these dudes who are stepping up for the Warriors, they have talent. Like, they're not reserve grade plodders who are filling a spot. These dudes all have serious footy talent. And I would stretch it out as well to Adam Pompey. Because, of course, there's intricacies, there's nuance, there's things I don't know. But in a let's not get caught up in the details. Let's keep it simple. How about that? Adam Pompey, Moala Graham Telfer, Nofahu White, Satili Tupanui, Joey Manu. They've all been recruited by the Roosters to play SG ball. I'm pretty confident that Pompey got the same treatment as Joey Manu. We're going to fly you in to play SG ball, send you back to Auckland. I can't confirm that for the Graham Telfer twins, Satili Tupanui and Nofahu White. They were all playing SG ball, jersey flag for the Roosters. The Roosters invested in them for a reason. Adam Pompey's not a plodder. He earned that opportunity with the Roosters by being one of the best. He was a first five for Wesley College. And he was commanding attention by playing first 15 for Wesley College at a high level. Commanding attention from the Roosters. All these dudes have talent, and that's the same treatment Moala Graham Telfer got. Are they Joey Manu? Not necessarily. But they got very similar treatment from the Roosters as Joey Manu did, which tells you about the talent they had at that stage. And now you're starting to see it when they step up for the Warriors and play at a high level. So anytime you see it, and what I'm seeing throughout the Warriors system is that you can't identify one dude. I see it in a few comments on our clips and different bits and pieces. It's like, yeah, this dude's going to be good. Have you heard about this dude? I like what I hear about this guy. At this stage, I can't select one Warriors junior and say, yeah, they're the guy. Because there's 3 teams worth of those dudes. Okay, yeah, Zion Maiu is really good. Well, Dimitri Sifakula is pretty good. Leka Halasim is pretty good. Tanistella Smith is pretty good. Then you get Eddie Oramia. Okay, we've got this 18-year-old outside back, Sio Kelly. Well, we've also got Moala Graham Telfer. We've got Ali Leotawa. We've got Rocket Berry. There's no shortage of players doing crazy things for the Warriors in New South Wales Cup and Jersey Flag. And they are all, yeah, they're the cream of the crop. Because the Warriors have that many, they've got a full squad of New South Wales Cup. They got a full squad of Jersey Flag. They got a full squad of SG Ball. So they can afford to have so much talent competing with each other. So you cannot look at one player, especially look at their highlights and be like, yeah, this dude's the future of the Warriors. Because I can list 10 more players who fit that level of talent in the Warriors system. So keep that in mind when you're pondering the Warriors junior pipeline, but also those players are stepping up into the NRL. And there's a reason why the Warriors are winning, have won these 2 games with these players stepping up. Again, Tom Alley. He was playing secondary schools rugby league for New Zealand. He made the New Zealand secondary schools team. He was playing first 15 at a high level for Mount Roskill, Wesley College, Rotorua Boys High School. It's not a coincidence that he's doing a job in the NRL right now. None of these dudes are mediocre. They are all above average, and I reckon you can put any of these players into Australian systems and they'd go well. Specifically on Moala Graham Telfer, second game, made his debut for the Roosters. I think that was 2021. That was at a time when lots of players made their debuts, and to be honest, a lot of those players haven't been cited since. And he also made his debut as 18th man. So he didn't actually have a run. I didn't see that he had a touch of the footy. He did make a tackle. So shout out. Debut, made a tackle as 18th man. And it was a bit of a journey because he did spend, I think, like 4 years in the Roosters system, made his debut, but then there was a mid-season departure from the Roosters. He spent a little bit of time with the Eels jersey flag. I think that was in 2022. Then he returned to Aotearoa and settled into the New South Wales Cup team with the Warriors. And as I said earlier, like he adds a bit of zip to this Warriors team. He's a big body. Like he's as big as any other outside back the Warriors have. But he's got a bit of speed, a bit of footwork, I think he's one of the fastest Warriors. Probably like when Watene-Zelezniak's striding out, he's pretty quick. But, short bursts, I reckon it's Moala Graham-Talfa and Taintua Piki who have the zip that I'm thinking about. And we've talked a long time about how the Warriors are lacking speed. And you could kind of see it when Herbie Farnworth's running the footy, when Hamiso Tabuai-Fido's running the footy, when Jake Averillo's running the footy against the Warriors. They can make an impact because the Warriors don't necessarily have the speed to counteract that, let alone with the footy in attack. But Moala Graham-Talfa, he's quick. He's got good footwork, and there was a GIF that I put into the Kiwi NRL spotlight of Moala Graham-Talfa, and it's the GIF from the image behind me. He's so fast that he just like snuffed out an overlap and tackled Herbie Farnworth. So it's like a 3-on-2, and he's in line with the third man in. Herbie Farnworth is already 10 metres on the outside of Moala Graham-Talfa, and he just chases him down, stops him on the try line, try save a tackle. Farnworth does score a try soon, bouncing back in field, but it was like, that speed and defence was notable, and the effort to get there. And this brings me to another point. If you put the talent that the Warriors have, just the basic pedigree of these players, if you put them into this team culture, these are the results you get. Because Moala Graham-Talfa on debut for the Warriors made that tackle. You got Mitchell Barnett leading this team with glory. You got Jackson Ford and Mitchell Barnett swapping between the middle and the edge during this game, doing anything the team needs to get the win. Dylan Walker, leader, doing everything the team requires. Watene-Zelezniak, we need you at fullback. Easy Mahi. Tamaiti Martin, we need you to step up and play halfback. Get the job done. That's all he does. So it's pretty special, these two wins. But it's a product of the team culture and how excited everyone is to be a part of the Warriors, to be playing for the Warriors. Those big crowds at Mount Smart are definitely a factor as well. And the players who are stepping up are extremely talented. Like, okay, we're going to put Taintua Piki at fullback. Well, where did the Warriors sign Taintua Piki from? Barely. When he was dominating Queensland Cup. Like, he's not a plotter. He was genuinely one of the best players in reserve grade in Queensland before joining the Warriors. Like, this is the level of talent the Warriors are bringing in to their club, but also bringing into the NRL team. And that's where you get the results that we have seen over the past few weeks with players who no one really knows about stepping up to do a job in the NRL because of their talent, because of the culture of this team.
How much do you think changes? It might not be how much, I'm not sure how I phrase this, but like in a few weeks' time, Sean Johnson comes back. Chance Nuku-Klokstad at some point, he's only out ill, and he played 2 weeks ago, so he'll be back, but probably he'll be back at fullback, I would assume at some stage, like the Tohu Harris will be back. Like these dudes that they're missing, this massive injury and unavailable list that they've had to defy in the last 2 weeks for two like massively gutsy wins. When these guys start coming back, do you think we see a different Warriors team than what we saw before the injuries, like before this winning streak? Are there certain things that you think will, like lessons that have been learned that we're going to continue to see, or are there sort of things where it's like this was good, but it was for a moment, and they slip back into, like I mean, I can't imagine a Warriors team where Sean Johnson isn't doing the majority of the kicking still, but I would imagine at the same time perhaps there's a lesson here that majority doesn't have to mean all of it. Maybe you can spread out the workload a little bit more and empower the other half a bit more. I don't know, but like, are there things that you've seen from the last 2 weeks that, I guess maybe the better way to say it, are there things you've seen from the last 2 weeks that you hope to see continue throughout the rest of the season after the sort of big name players filter back into the side?
Yeah, winning.
Winning's a good start. Yeah.
I'd hope to see the winning, but I say that because it's not. I don't think it's they've had to play a different style of footy. They've had to simplify or target different areas, and they've had to rely on different players to play different roles and play bigger minutes, play less minutes. But the most important thing is adapting. And I think this is a buzzword at the moment, because what do we think about the Black Caps at World Cups? We think the Black Caps are a good team in major events because of how they adapt, because of how they adapt to their opponent, because of how they adapt to conditions, because of how they adapt to situations within the game. So I can say, oh, okay, yeah, the Warriors have played this style without Sean Johnson. But they played a different style against the Panthers than they did against the Dolphins. Like, there are similarities, but there's not as many similarities as we would think. And we only need to look at the halves combination to really highlight this. Against the Panthers, Te Maire Martin does all the kicking. Shans Nickel-Krokstad doesn't have a kick, but he's got 15 runs for 136 metres. And 3 offloads. We come to the Dolphins, it's Te Maire Martin and Chanel Harris-Tavita. Te Maire Martin has 18 kicks, Chanel Harris-Tavita 9, that was runs. Te Maire Martin has 14 kicks, Chanel Harris-Tavita has 9 kicks. So in these 2 games, the Warriors have played with a number 6 who doesn't do any kicking and lots of running, and then they've played with a number 6 who is a pure number 6, I reckon, because he's doing half the kicking, but he's also running the footy. He's got a bit of razzle-dazzle. He's a good defender, Harris-Tavita. Okay, so, yeah, we're playing a different style. Well, one game you got Taintua Piki at fullback. The next game you've got Dallin Watene-Zelezniak at fullback. They are different styles of fullback. Taintua Piki isn't running it straight like Watene-Zelezniak. I'm sure he could, because he's a hearty Taharoa boy, but he's not as big as Watene-Zelezniak, so that might not end up as well as it could for Watene-Zelezniak. Okay, let's get into the forward pack. Well, Jackson Ford, he's listed as starting on an edge. And Marata Niukore is listed as starting at prop against the Dolphins. But Jackson Ford was playing in the middle. And Marata Niukore was playing on the right edge. And Mitchell Barnett was playing on the left edge against the Dolphins. And through the game, there was a stint where Jackson Ford was on the right edge. There was a stint where Mitchell Barnett was in the middle. There was a stint when Jacob Laban was on the left edge. So there's so many differences between these 2 games. So you can't say that the Warriors are playing this style of footy to win these 2 games. That's how they should play moving forward. I'm seeing two completely different styles of footy. The only thing in common is that Tamata Martin's controlled the game pretty nicely, and that Jazz Tavanga's been, like, his hit and spin has been awesome. And of course, you have Mitchell Barnett, Afoa, Walker. They're all playing at a high level. Everyone's playing at a high level, but they are playing two different styles of footy in these two wins. But that's the point, is they've adapted to these situations. You think against the Panthers, I think in both games, they've kind of made a comeback. But against the Panthers, it was a bit more helter-skelter. And I think that suited the style. Like, you want to go helter-skelter, crazy footy against the Panthers to break them down. And then you think about the Dolphins game, there was a period, like after 60 minutes or so, they just get repeat sets. And they just start to grind the Dolphins down. And you're like, oh, like, I'm pretty confident the Dolphins can still score a try if they need to, because they're pretty good. They're fast. They've got threats across the park. And I think Isako scored a try late in the game. But you knew when they were getting those repeat sets, primarily from Tamata Martin, that they were in control of the game. And they were winding the clock down. They were setting up the finish. So it's a very interesting question, because I think the best thing about these two games is how they've adapted. And again, like Paul Roach, he played almost the whole game against the Panthers. He's one style of hooker. Then you come into the Dolphins. Freddie Lussick's playing 70 minutes. He's a different style of hooker. Like, there's so many little differences between these two wins that I don't think there's anything you can really take from these two wins forward, aside from this is a team that can adapt to their opponent, they can adapt to the situation, they can adapt to conditions, and they can adapt to who's in their team and still perform at a high level. That's where you learn the most about their culture and how they operate as a team, because it just seems like they can put 17 blokes on there from their squad, and they reckon they can get the job done. Another bit here, and you see it a lot. You see it a lot pre-season, and even during the season. There's a lot of top 30 chat. Who's our top 30? Who's in the top 30? What's our top 30? Much like Black Caps contracts, much like White Ferns contracts, we don't need to care. These things are not relevant to us. Who cares who's in your top 30? Because in the NRL, someone's going to get injured, someone's going to get suspended, someone's going to fall sick, and you will need to use players 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. So don't worry about the top 30. You need to have more than 30. You need to have blokes outside your top 30 who are being paid as professional footballers, which is what happens. And they need to be ready to play in the NRL outside your top 30. And if your NRL team does not have players 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, you've either got a whole lot of good luck with your availabilities, or you're losing. Because the Warriors are calling on a lot of players to get the job done. And we're talking players, 28, 29, 30 to 35, who have stepped in to play NRL footy. So don't worry about your top 30. Worry about your top 50.
Which, yeah, like that's an entire first grade team and an entire reserve team. It's like, let's say you have, the Warriors are a good example of this actually recently. Like they're, who might be playing fullback for them, or like Shaznul Klokstad was first choice, but Tane Taupiki started the season while he was out, and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck's done some time there. All three of those players were unavailable on the weekend. So that's going beyond 30 players because those 30 players are supposed to cover every position, right? So that's kind of like a couple of players in each spot. Well, you're up to like your fourth idea of a fullback, which in this case was moving one of their wingers back, but then you move him back, you got to find another winger from somewhere else, kind of thing. And this is where like, and maybe that winger is the center sliding out or whatever. And then this is how like, Ed Cossey's getting in there or what's his name, Graham Telfer and dudes like this. Like you have to have flexibility, but you have to also have depth. Like you need both of those things in order to be able to roll with the punches, which the Warriors have done extremely well lately. And I think that, yeah, I think that that idea about adaptability is massive because it's how they won these two games, which were like different things were required of them, and they were able to produce those different things on both occasions. It's also kind of the opposite of that criticism that was hovering around them while they were losing of maybe they're just too predictable and play the same way every time and every set is like the same five guys taking the same five hit ups and then Johnson bombs it to the opposition's left winger or their fullback sliding out so that Rocco Berry can rush up and make a one-on-one tackle and it's tackle 5 meters off the goal line. But then it's just go through the grind and the Warriors make a mistake or give away a penalty or something and suddenly that work's undone or whatever. It's the levels to which we saw that pattern just like lather, rinse, repeated over the losing streak is in stark contrast to what we saw here, where it was a team that produced the performance that was required to win each of those two games, which was not the same thing. And yeah, it doesn't moving forward, I guess that doesn't have to be a tactical thing of saying, okay, well, this thing worked, so we're going to do this a lot more, so much as it has to be like, find what works on the day or figure out what works against this opponent and adapt your baseline tactics, which is still going to be the same the most of the way through, but just having that little bit of wiggle room to be like, let's switch things up slightly in this area because this team has a weakness on their right edge defense isn't very good, so we're going to go that side a little bit more often, or just having that kind of that adaptability to be able to address the specific game that's in front of you on that day would probably lead to a few more wins. And if that is, which I expect it will be from this point onwards, if that's sort of like more of what we see from this team, that's a nice way to start. Like that's a good trait to have.
According to NRL.com, Moala Graham Telfer and Paul Roach are not in the top 30 and they don't have development contracts. So what's the point of us caring? Like, it means nothing to us as like far as insight and learning goes. We just know that they're playing New South Wales Cup. If they're called upon to play NRL, at this stage, we can trust that they can do the job in the NRL. Someone who does have development contracts I see here is Jet Cleary, but as we keep saying, the Warriors also already have Aussie halves on their books, and they're playing footy for the Warriors right now. New South Wales Cup. So again, this is where we're getting into the Warriors development pipeline. Their halves combination in the loss to the Bears this week, Caleb Lehman and Luke Hanson. Both of them under 21s. So the reserve grade halves combination are under 21s. Hanson's an Aussie from the Panthers. Then we go to the Warriors Jersey Fleek. They had a win over the Storm. Halves combination, Jesse Sorich and Maui Winitana Patalaseo. They're both from SG Ball. So the halves combination for the under 21s team are under 19s. And one of them's an Aussie, Jesse Sorich. One of them's from Wellington. And then who's 18th man? Talon Egan, Wade Egan's little brother. So this fits into a greater theme with the Warriors that people need to know about. Most of the under 21s team at the moment, they're from SG Ball. that means there's a lot of under-21s and SG Ball lads playing New South Wales Cup. And that seems rather impressive considering everything I've talked about as far as the talent and the culture at the higher levels. Right, let's I do want to touch on this Broncos and Titans game because it was a Kiwi NRL extravaganza. First, though, with the Titans, I kind of feel like Aaron Clark is the best player for the Titans. He's not, because they got David Fafita and so on and so forth. But when Aaron Clark's on the field for the Titans are better. And he is a quintessential small forward. Like, he's faster than Dylan Walker. He's more powerful than Dylan Walker. And he adds some serious oomph to this Titans team whenever he steps on the field. I love what Aaron Clark is doing. He's a Manurewa junior. And when he was coming up through the grades in the Warriors system, he was a halfback. Then he played a bit of hooker. Now he's just a straight up middle forward, playing small forward for the Titans. So I want to shout out Aaron Clark. He's fantastic with the Titans. And also, the one and only Keanu Kinney, who might have been better than Reece Walsh in this game. Keanu Kinney is he's fast, he's electric, but he's a tough bugger, that kid. Because he gets smashed all the time, and he just pops up for another run. He had 27 runs for 262 meters, which is almost 10 meters per run on 27 runs, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's not that ridiculous if we're dealing like Joey Manu for Aotearoa Kiwis, Shans Clockstaff for Aotearoa Kiwis, and so on. But week to week in the NRL, it is absolutely ridiculous. And Keanu Kinney he's showing out for the Titans, and folks need to know about Keanu Kinney. So it's good for the Titans to get that win with Keanu Kinney and Aaron Clark playing at a high level. Isaac Liu holding it down as a veteran in that team. And then you go to the Broncos. Like, Josiah Karapani had a wobbly pass to the sideline that didn't really work out in a clutch moment, but he was pretty damn good. Dean Mariner was pretty damn good. And then you've got Xavier Willison. Folks need to know about Xavier Willison from the Waikato, also from Taharoa. So we've got 3 lads from Taharoa doing a fine job in the NRL. And of course they got Jordan Ricky, who I learned he's half Indigenous Australian. He's half Māori, half Indigenous Australian. There was a nice story about him learning about his Indigenous Australian heritage as part of the fantastic cultural work that the NRL does. So I love that game. That game was entertaining, but it was also entertaining with a lot of the best young players coming from Aotearoa. And 2 of them were instrumental in getting the win for the Titans, Keanu Kinney and Aaron Clark. And because Nofahu White was also fantastic for the Roosters in their win over the Raiders. It's like, well, Nofahu White hasn't played for Aotearoa yet. He was 18th man when the Kiwis beat Australia 30-0. Reminder, during State of Origin, the Aotearoa Kiwis and the Kiwi Ferns have won their most recent games against Australia, so that seems notable. But like, this is the depth we're talking about for Aotearoa Rugby League. Of course, these lads are also eligible, like Xavier Willison, Cook Islands International, Dean Mariner, Karapani, Aaron Clark. They can all play Samoa, Tonga, and so on. But they're all Kiwi NRL lads from Aotearoa. And I'd suggest the depth of Aotearoa Kiwis is going to mean that some of these younger players are going to play for Samoa and Tonga and Cook Islands because there's just too much depth. Like, I want Xavier Willison playing for the Aotearoa Kiwis, but I can't really select them ahead of Griffin Neame, Leo Thompson, Nofahu White, and those lads. Because those lads are behind Nelson Asafa Solomona, James Fisher Harris, Joseph Tapine, you feel me? There's a lot of depth on offer here with the Aotearoa Kiwis, and it was good to see the Titans get the dub especially with Keanu Kinney and Aaron Clark doing their thing for the Gold Coast outfit?
Yeah, Keanu Kinney versus Reece Walsh is fullback battles in general are a bit like they kind of never actually touch each other. Like no one's actually getting tackled by the other one. It's not a specific head to head like you might get with a prop versus prop or lock versus lock kind of thing. But that's a pretty awesome battle because I think there's a lot of similarities between those two players. Like if you're looking at Keanu Kinney trying to get a gauge on how he plays, Reece Walsh is not a perfect comparison, but a pretty good comparison. And even their stats from this game, like Walsh didn't run as much, but he still had I think he had more than 10 meters per carry. I think it was like 180 odd. Looking at it before, but both of them had like 2 try assists. Both of them had certain amount of like a few tackle busts, like 5+ tackle busts, something like that. So good fun when that's happening, when you get like one dude who's already a young superstar of the league, and then you see another dude who's coming up being like, there's a lot in common there. It's not quite mirror image, but there's a lot in common there.
And Keanu Kinney was kicking goals, and you can tell, like Adam Pompey kicking goals, you can see the timing and how he hits the footy. That it's like a natural ability for him. Keanu Kinney's got that same natural kicking ability, and I've got there's a story here that says he was playing fullback for Rosmini College First 15. So obviously, a lot of these skills don't transfer. Like Connolly Lemuelu doesn't have to do long-range kicking for the Dolphins, despite being a first 5 for Tangaroa College First 15. But I can see Keanu Kinney's background in kicking a footy when he was kicking the goals, and it makes you wonder what he's capable of expanding that skill set in the NRL for the Titans as well. Before we get into the Flying Kiwis champions, of which there seems to be a lot of promotion, relegation action that we need to touch on as well. Bit of a situation with Yitka Klimkova. She's not going to be traveling with the football Ferns on this upcoming tour. I think they're playing against Japan. Is that in Japan?
It's in Spain.
It's in Spain, but they're playing against Japan. There's nothing we know. It's an employment matter. Who knows what that means? Leave of absence while an investigation is concluded into an employment-related manner. That's about as murky as our favorite estuaries when we go deep into the mangrove. So we've got no idea what's happening there. What's your interpretation of how this impacts the football Ferns on their journey?
Literally no idea what that employment related matter or whatever is supposed to mean, or like that could be some disgruntled ex-assistant kicking up a fuss about something she's completely innocent of. It could be something where she's, I don't know, crossed some boundary. We got no idea, so there's no point in speculating on that. We'll just see what happens as to what goes down. I mean, she's picked the squad. I think she has a set. I think Michael Main, one of the assistants, has taken over to is the, I guess, interim boss, if that's the right term. Well, there still is a boss, but you're in the interim, but whatever. I don't know. I don't know what that looks like, but I don't think we'll see anything drastically different. I think we'll still see a Ferns team trying to work on the same kind of stuff they've been working on, picking similar squads to what they've been picking. There is an Olympic tournament coming up soon, obviously, so that is very much the focus. These games against Japan, which they'll probably lose because we usually lose to Japan. We've actually never beaten Japan in history. I think 10 times we've played them, something like that. I did look this up and it's true. We've never beaten Japan. A couple of draws back in the day, but not recently. This is kind of like the Ferns have been playing against Oceania. They've been playing against Thailand. These are games where they were the dominant team. They're not going to be the dominant team at the Olympics, where they're playing against host France, defending champions Canada, and Colombia, who were sort of like the breakthrough team of the last World Cup, made the quarterfinals. they're going to be underdogs in all three of those matches. So it's about getting back into underdog mentality. And hey, maybe not having your regular coach maybe helps a bit of underdog mentality. I don't know. There's just another thing to feel like, well, no one expects us to win. We probably still won't win, but let's go out there and put a good account, especially defensively, and really frustrate these guys and just get back into that style of game ahead of the Olympics, where that style of game is very much going to be what's required.
We do have a lot of flying Kiwis winning around the world, but also we had a first appearance from Macey Fraser in Utah, right? Utah Royals?
Yeah, the Utah Royals.
What did you make of Macey Fraser playing for Utah?
Well, it was basically the first opportunity because she turned up, her and the Spanish defender Ana Tejada, who they signed at the exact same time. Basically, it was like a day later they announced that one. They both arrived a week ago, and the coach is like, "Well, we'll give them a bit of a acclimatization period. We'll give them time to settle in." They didn't bring them along on. They were at the team when they arrived. The team was away on a road trip because they did a game in North Carolina, I think it was. So they didn't join the team for that. They just sort of like got set up at the Utah base and joined training once the team returned. So I'm thinking the acclimatization period seems fair, but also they have won one out of like 8, 9, 10 games, whatever they've played this season. They were on a losing streak. I don't know how long you want to wait before chucking in a couple of international players that you've signed recently. And it turns out how long they wanted to wait was 1 week. So 1 week of training was all the acclimatization needed. Ana Tejada went straight into the starting lineup at centre back and was pretty decent. Got a yellow card very early, but looks like a player who plays like a Spanish defender. Very good on the ball and will help their team progress things forward nicely. Fraser played off the bench, but she was brought on when the team was 1-0 down. So she was chucked on there in midfield to try give them a bit of a creative spark. Didn't quite work because the Utah Royals are the bottom team in the NWSL and they're there for a reason. And one of those reasons is they can't really create enough chances. But she looked decent. There were once or twice where the physicality of the league showed that this is going to be a bit of a step up from what the A-League is to the American stuff, which is to be expected. I mean, why was America the dominant team through the 2010s in the world? Is because they had the best athletes. So obviously their league is still going to be, even though there is definitely a massive trend right now in the NWSL of bringing in international players and by spending good transfer fees, of which Macey Fraser applies to this, but also the NWSL broke the world record transfer fee a couple of times in the start of the season. They're trying to bring in more of a globalized idea of how to play football. They're trying to get some of these European and Asian and African and Oceania even players involved in the league just to get a few more ideas in there. So it's not just purely this American bubble, but
are you
suggesting
league, that the Americans have an open mind on how to do things?
Maybe American women's football has a bit of an open mind. I think if you stretch that into other sports and other parts of society, I reckon that idea would crumble very quickly. But yes, it does seem to be a trend. I mean, even like who's coaching the American women's national team now is Emma Hayes, English, been coaching Chelsea to title after title after title in the English league. They've looked outside their own borders. There is some open-mindedness there, and not just open-mindedness from a maybe we don't know everything perspective, but specifically from open-mindedness of these people are doing it better than us in the European setup, and specifically, maybe we need to tap into a little bit of that. So I think Macey Fraser and also Millie Clegg have probably benefited from that. They've got because I mean, who were the last players to play? The last debutant from New Zealander in the NWSL was Ellie Riley, who's as American as she is New Zealander. She grew up there. She's born in one American parent and one New Zealand parent. American parent of I think Chinese, so Asian American basically, but so she's had a multicultural background, but she grew up in America. That's not really a cultural switch or anything like that. There's there's been very little of this up until they bombed out at the World Cup. And now there's suddenly a whole lot of it. I reckon that trend is quite those things are quite related. And yeah, Macey Fraser is benefiting from that. The physicality will take some time to get used to, but you also saw a player who looked pretty confident. Like she was getting in there and winning tackles. She was wanting the ball. She probably wasn't given the ball as often as she should have been some of those times, but that's just a matter of adapting to your teammates and your teammates adapting to you. So I thought she looked great on debut. Tried a shot from miles out at one point, which was about their only shot in the last 15 minutes while they were 1-0 down. So at least someone had a go. It went straight at the keeper, though. So I think Wellington Phoenix fans will recognize that trend of Macey Fraser smacks the hell out of the ball, but doesn't necessarily pick out the corners. There was a lot of that for the Phoenix, too. That's something that, young player stuff. You figure those things out. But yeah, look bright. And I think that tells you that if she's been rushed in this quickly, she's going to continue to play most weeks, or at least be in squads most weeks. Whereas Millie Clegg, who lost the race to get the 7th all-time New Zealand debutant in the NWSL, she'll hopefully be the 8th very soon, but she's been on the bench 3 times in a row for Racing Louisville, but hasn't quite been used yet. And you've got to remember, I suppose, she is like 3 years younger than Fraser as well. So it's also, she's ahead of the curve there, and just training at that intensity in that environment is itself going to be hugely beneficial. But her chance will come at some point, but she is definitely more of a project player for Racing Louisville versus Macey Fraser at Utah as someone who was signed to play. Like, she was signed to play straight away, and she has played straight away, and that should continue for the rest of the season. Maybe they'll win a game at some point as well, but they did lose that one on the weekend, and I think they've lost 5 in a row now.
As per your list in our newsletter yesterday, some Kiwi footballers who've won trophies in the past few weeks. Marko Stamenic won the Serbian Superliga and Serbian Cup. Victoria Esson won the Scottish Cup and the League Cup. Cullen McCowart won the Danish Cup. Matt Diaz won the Premier League Cup for Fulham under-21s. Maya Hahn and Suya Herring won the German Bundesliga 2. Alex Grieve won the Scottish Championship. Rhea Percival won the English Championship. Dalton Wilkins won the Danish Division 1. Andre de Jong won the South African Knockout Cup. And Erin Naylor won the German Bundesliga. We're tracking Malia Steinmetz, who is chasing a Danish League Cup double as well. What is the funkiest, most notable pocket of that winning list?
Marko Stamenic we've mentioned before, so it's probably him, but I don't know that we need to dwell on that other than to say that the thing we were waiting to happen has happened. They won the league, they won the cup. He's won league and cup doubles in consecutive years, but in different countries. He did it with FC Copenhagen in Denmark. Now he's done it in Serbia with Red Star Belgrade, aka Crvena Zvezda. There's I'll put this in Flying Kiwis, but there's a nice little clip of him. More than a clip, it's like a feature that some Serbian broadcast did with him, where it's like just him walking through a park, getting interviewed for about 20 minutes, which is quite interesting, talking about his family heritage and his footballing journey and some of this stuff like that. It was pretty good. I'll chuck that up in Flying Kiwis. But
any shout out for Samoa?
Yeah, a little bit. The Serbian lady brought it up. She's like, "You're from the beautiful island of part of your family, the beautiful island of Samoa." And one of those things where it's like you say this because you don't know anything else about it, but it is a beautiful island, so that's true. But it was also it was a let's say something generous because I don't really know what I'm talking about type moment. But they did the interview in English, which was nice because I don't understand Serbian, so it just brought me in. I think Stamenic aside, I would say maybe it's Vic Esson then, the other one to have won a double, because the interesting thing here is she has been rotated in and out throughout her 2 years at Rangers, more out than in for most of the season, but then they got to the point where they're trying to the League Cup was earlier on in the season, so she played that final, they won that. more recently, they've been competing for the league, competing for the cup, the main cup, and suddenly Esson just started playing every game. So I think she played the last 8 or 9 matches all in a row, which is easily her best streak of appearances for this club. And it was coming while trophies were on the line. They didn't end up winning the Scottish League. It could have been a treble, but they missed out on goal difference on the final day against Celtic. Celtic were quite comfortably ahead on goal difference, so really they needed Celtic not to win. What happened is that Celtic scored like an 89th minute winner in their game. So it was very, 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 very close to a treble, but Celtic pulled it out of the bag right at the death there. They won the league, but Rangers, including Vic Esson keeping a clean sheet in that game, had already knocked Celtic out at the semi-finals of the Cup. They went on to win 2-0 against Hearts on the weekend in the Scottish Cup final at Hampton Park. And yeah, two Cup trophies for Vic Esson this season. Excellent way to finish the season, leading into the Olympics as well, where like and Leat also just had an excellent end to the season, where injury to their top keeper at Aston Villa meant she was getting the run of games, and she finished it off with one of her best ever performances against Manchester City. They lost 2-1, but she made about 9 saves and really frustrated the hell out of City, who themselves also were trying to win a league title on the last day and missed out on goal difference. So it was a bit of a flip side thing there, where the Kiwis on the other side of the equation this time. Those two extremely informed goalkeepers there going into the Olympics, where I can't think of another time where that's ever been the case for the football ferns, certainly, where and it's not just like following them week to week, right, in the Flying Kiwi stuff. It's like one of them does something good and the next day the other one responds. It's like they're driving, even while one's playing in Scotland, one's playing in England, but it's like their performances are driving each other onwards to be better. It's the exact like model image of what you want from competition for places within a national team. It's like 2 players, only one of them can start each game, and they're both like, because one plays so well, the other has to play so well, and because that one's matched, the first one has to go above and beyond, and they're just driving each other to higher standards in a way which, yeah, if we had this at the striker position, there wouldn't be any goal drought issues, you know, but we're not quite there yet, but we are seeing that in other areas, and we're starting to get it in the attacking areas too, because I think, you know, a lot of Flying Kiwis goals happening each week, and Anna Wilkinson's had a solid season for Melbourne City, but Millie Clegg signed in the NWSL, and Jackie Hand and Indy Riley are regularly scoring goals in Europe and creating goals and all this. Like Gabby Rennie's getting amongst that now too. Like we're getting there, but the goalkeeping position, that's the gold standard for what we're talking about. The way that Anna Leat and Vic Esson are just getting better and better and better through their sort of like friendly rivalry with each other.
I'm going to call the football ferns the underdog ferns for the next few months, because there is this perception that the football ferns should be winning games against all these teams who are blatantly better than them in the world of football. Yeah. So I'm just going to hammer that home. Underdog football ferns. And if we're dealing with an underdog football ferns, you always want a good goalie. Like a good goalie in football. It's like to upset the favourites, to be a really good underdog, you need a fantastic goalkeeper. And I think the football fans had that. The Wellington Phoenix had it. Alex Poulsen, best goalkeeper in the A-League, best player in the A-League. That's the core foundation of success in their A-League season. Football ferns, the underdog football ferns, they got 2 really goalkeepers in great form at the moment that could help them over the next few months. 2 quick things to finish here. I'm curious what you've been following in the NBL, but I was watching the Tauranga Whai play their game. I don't know who they played. Let me see. They had a win. Might have been over Manawatu, I think.
Yeah, that was the one.
And there's this dude, Tuhi Lewis, who caught my eye. shooting 43.5% from the 3-point line. What do you reckon about Te Tuhi Lewis playing for the Tauranga Whai?
Yeah, 6 to 10 3-pointers in that game, scored 23 points in 20 minutes. And he's someone who I have heard mention a little bit as like one of the younger-ish dudes who's had a solid impact off the bench for the Fire. Was, you know, he's a name that's gotten a little bit of buzz. He's not coming sort of out of nowhere with this performance, but also this was just a massive like game-winning top scorer, hitting a bunch of threes. Where did this dude come from kind of performance at the same time. Like it's not out of nowhere, but the suddenness of how impactful he was here drilling 3-pointers was a big one. He was, yeah. I didn't see much of the game though. I did only catch the highlights, so I can't say to which.
I think I'd previously seen him playing for Franklin. It might have been last season he was playing for Franklin. And then,
yeah, it's not his first year in the league. I can't remember where he played before.
He's originally from the Waikato, I believe, from Hamilton. And he's, he just caught my eye with the Tauranga Whai. The Whai are 5-7, mid-table in the NBL. Still dealing with the same big donnies. Not much has really changed. So I'm curious, what else caught your attention? Any details? You want to keep it simple, though.
Well, the game that I had my eye on from the very start was Canterbury against Wellington. I think Wellington were the home team. Because this was Canterbury getting their win streak like tested for the first time. So against one of the kind of fellow contending sides, and we didn't quite get a contending level Wellington Saints, if I'm honest about it. Like Canterbury thrashed them. They won by like 23 points. I think they put 107 past them, which I think is the highest score against the Saints so far this season.
Was Tane playing? Tane Samuels?
Tane Samuel was playing. He at one point shoved Taylor Britt over under the basket for no reason, which I think the refs missed it, so it didn't get noticed. But I'll tell you who wasn't playing was Isaiah Leafa, who was still out for personal reasons. I don't know exactly what's going on, but he's away at the moment, missed the last couple of games. So without him, there was definitely a bit of, because he's a great spot shooter, but he's also someone who can handle the ball and dribble around a little bit. He's not amazing driving to the hoop in the way that I think maybe he could develop to become that. But yeah, he's an elite local scorer, and he wasn't playing. And without him, they were already going to be stretched. And then Hiram Harris only plays about like 2 minutes because he's still dealing with injury, and he started the game, but he didn't last past the first quarter. So that was going to leave a Wellington Saints side very short. And the Rams did what you're supposed to do in that situation and punish them, and which means the Rams have now won 8 games in a row. They have the same amount of losses as the Tuatara, which means if they win the 2 games they've got in hand compared to the Tuatara, they would go equal with them. They still have to play the Tuatara again. Auckland did beat Canterbury right at the start, but the Rams, like, it's a little bit frustrating because I wanted to see them whether they could beat like a full strength Saints team, and then you can say, yeah, defending champs, they're gone. They're in it for a sort of back-to-back title contention here, but we didn't get that because of Wellington's unavailabilities. But they're still pretty good. The Bro MJ was hitting 3-pointers, but he was also not only hitting 3-pointers, he was also getting to the hoop and getting some layups. So it wasn't just the sort of one-dimensional stuff there. He was going through the levels. And Taylor Britt has been so good this season. Like he's not the star for them. Probably Lachlan Olbrich is the star for them. Australian 20-year-old big fella who actually I found out was a teammate of Flynn Cameron's at UC Riverside briefly, because this was, I don't know how many years Olbrich did, but they definitely were teammates in Cameron's senior year. But then Olbrich left university to be a next star in the NBL with Illawarra Hawks. So he did that last year, averaged like 3-3, played about 10 minutes a game kind of thing. He says his plan is to go back and do another next star thing if they'll have him back, and then declare for the 2025 NBA draft. And I don't know if you've seen much from him to say that he's a NBA drafty type stuff from averaging 3-3 in the Aussie NBL, but he's scoring like 20 points every game and averaging about 10 rebounds, 10 plus rebounds for the Canterbury Rams while looking like one of the best players in the league at 20 years old. I think this is definitely there's some Canterbury Rams stuff going on as scouting highlights packages if that does happen. Like if he gets a bit of buzz, they're chucking some NBL clips in there because he's been great. But Taylor Britt is like he's the point guard, right? They got a couple good American imports who can just do solid things. One of them can hit 3-pointers. One of them's a very good defender. They've got an Aussie big man who can rebound and who can score in a couple different ways. And they've got Taylor Britt who can just tie things together like a classy point guard who's also scoring so much more. Like I looked, they won a championship last year, right? He averaged 9.5 points per game. His minutes have gone up from 23 to 31. He's averaging 15.7 points. So he's added more than 5 points per game. His field goal percentage has gone up from about 44% to 55%, but he's shooting less and also worse from the 3-point line. So what you're getting from Taylor Britt instead is not just standing on the edge and throwing up threes. He's like dribbling around dudes. He's getting pick and rolls and he's getting to the hoop and just finishing layups in a way which I don't know if we've quite seen this version of Taylor Britt before, but we're getting it now, and he's absolutely fantastic for the Rams, who also, the two other things I'll say about them, probably have the most intriguing and most intriguingly deep kind of group of Kiwi young players. Like Max Darling is there, Walter Brown is there. Those are guys that people know. They've had Aussie NBL and Tall Blacks experience. Taki Farronson is I think he might be slightly older than those other two, but he's played a little bit of professional in lower league Germany, and he's been a solid contributor for them. Not amazing this year compared to what I thought he might be, a bit more of a scorer for them, but he's had his moments. And then you got like the Isaac brothers, Kaya Isaac and Tama Isaac, both great shooters and pretty like skilled ball handlers too. Tama Isaac's only like 17 or 18 or something ridiculous and is getting decent minutes in this team. And Aiden Tonge I'd chuck out there as well as like a younger Kiwi big man who's getting he's had a couple games where he's had to step up and do some nice things. All of which is tied together by Judd Flavel, who is just clearly one of the very best coaches that we have in the country. Regularly is there alongside Pero Cameron as a national team assistant. And if the Breakers are serious, think about who their next head coach is going to be after Modi Maor. With him having left, I fail to see a better candidate than Judd Flavel. But of course, the first thing the Breakers said was we're going on a worldwide, global, international search to find our next head coach. It's like there's a dude in the same country who has a lot of experience. He's been an assistant with, he's been at the Breakers before. He's been an assistant more recently with Southeast Melbourne. Like experience within the league that you play in, winning over and over and over at the New Zealand domestic level. Like who's a better candidate than that? There probably isn't one, but of course they'll just sign some, random Slovakian or another Israeli or an American college guy or something, who knows. But credit to Judd Flavel where credit is due, because that's the outstanding candidate as far as I can see it. And the Canterbury Rams, would have been nice to see them up against a full-strength Wellington Saints team so we could really get that gauge of where they're at. But, I mean, they're beating everyone who's in front of them at the moment, so you can't do much more than that.
Let's finish with a splash of Black Caps. T20 World Cup is just around the corner. And I was looking through some of the IPL performances. I obviously don't care about the IPL, but I was curious, is there anything I can learn from what the Kiwi lads have been doing in the IPL to help me form some insights for covering the Black Caps heading into the World Cup? I felt like it was my duty to check in, at least. Just check in with the Black Caps in the IPL. And Rachin Ravindra is the dude who stands out to me. I mean, he was playing for Chennai, which meant he was spending time with Dhoni, Jadeja, Moanali, Stephen Fleming. Well, it seems useful. Seems like it might help you. And he played 10 games. He batted 10 times, which is above average for the Kiwi lads. 222 runs, average of 22. That's all right. But he had a strike rate of 161. And that has got me thinking. It's got me thinking about the Black Caps at this T20 World Cup. And I'm going to roll through some stats, and then I'll roll through these stats, but I want to put it out there that I still think Finn Allen, Rachin Ravindra opening the batting is my favourite combination up top there, which does leave a bit of a wicket-keeping hole, because Devon Conway is basically the wicket-keeper, but Finn Allen can be wicket-keeper. But of course, Rachin Ravindra can basically bat anywhere from 1 to 6, I'd say, in this team. So he's got an IPL strike rate of 161. And this is in tune with his T20 international strike rates that have grown over the last 3 years. So 2021, he had a strike rate of 91. 2023, he had a strike rate of 134. 2024, this year, he's got a strike rate of 186. So he has a T20 international strike rate this year of 186 and an IPL strike rate of 161. And the other thing about Rachin Ravindra is he's big game Rachin. So what did he do at the ODI World Cup? He went bonkers. And he's both his, so he's got a one-day international strike rate of 108 and a list day strike rate of 101. So if you've got a one-day strike rate in ODIs or list day over 100, I'm paying attention. And the recent strike rates in T20 cricket have come after that World Cup performance last year. I think this tournament, it's a big stage for Rachin Ravindra, a big moment for Rachin Ravindra. I think he can be a first 11 cricketer. And if he's rolling out this type of mahi alongside Finn Allen, Kane Williamson, Daryl Mitchell, Glenn Phillips, Jimmy Neesham, Michael Bracewell, so on and so forth, Devon Conway.
Maybe Devon Conway. Maybe instead of Devon Conway.
I mean, they got to adapt. They got to, you need a squad. You need players stepping up, next man up. I think Rachin Ravindra, I think it's not only a big moment for him, but this could be the type of X factor that propels the Black Caps to at least the semi-finals, better, a final, and better than that, a T20 World Cup championship. So I'm putting the spotlight on Rachin Ravindra. I think he's obviously we got Glenn Phillips, the most exciting cricketer in the world. And it's like, either one of them can take this tournament over. Because Glenn Phillips has the whole Caribbean history, and he's also the most exciting cricketer in the world. He's going to be the best fielder at the tournament. He might take a few wickets. We know what he does. But folks need to tap in with Ravindra, because I've got him as a first 11 cricketer. I think the conditions in the Caribbean are going to suit him, because they are between the Caribbean, India, and New Zealand. There's a similarity between India and the Caribbean. And I'm pretty excited to see what Rachin Ravindra can do. So first, I'm putting the warning out that he might be a first 11 cricketer. And second, I think he can take over this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, he takes over everything else whenever an opportunity comes along. I mean, he didn't even mention there, he also scored 240 in a test match and since that World Cup too. So it's not just that he figured something out at the ODI World Cup and then was able to, I don't know, a more aggressive version of himself was unlocked. That's not true, because he has a test match double century since then as well. Like it's just a whatever. I don't think even anything was necessarily unlocked. I think it was just like the opportunity arose. He was ready for it, and whatever seems to be put in front of him, he seems to be all good with. Like if that's a test match and this is how you got to bat, he's got that. He's got the technique and the mentality to bat long in that situation. He's also got the I won't say he doesn't feel like a power hitter, but I think he is more powerful. Like we've seen him hit some big shots. He is more powerful than maybe he appears at first. I think some of that is hand speed, but it's also just the array of shots that he has means that he can score at a quick strike rate. It doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter how far your sixes go as well. Like who cares? A six is a six, and you can have a high strike rate without slugging sixes if you can just pick gaps and hit fours and get twos and just not have dot balls over and over. I think that is also something he's pretty handy with, but then at the same time he can slug sixes. So he's just a well-rounded player who seems to be able to, hey, theme of the podcast, he seems to be able to adapt to whatever the situation requires of him. I want to say like there's like a, I don't know, like a brewing wave here of how can you deny him? Like you've got to have him in the team somehow. But I'm also wary of saying that because that's what everyone said after the ODI World Cup when they went to Bangladesh, the test tour. Like, you got to pick him. You got to pick him. It's like they're balancing him out. They're giving him and you can't just drop someone else for no reason to bring Rachin Ravindra. Like you've got to. There's a whole environment here that you gotta manage, and they're doing all right with Ravindra and letting the opportunities arise naturally as they do. But they've done that, and more opportunities have arisen, which he's taken every single time. It's like I don't. You just got to have him in the first 11. I've come around to what those dudes were saying back then. I think it wasn't true then, but it is true now. Like there's more evidence. It's just a matter of how you fit him into that first 11, isn't it?
It's also a really good T20 bowler. So just leave that little seed there for you to ponder. And that is our niche cast. For this week, we'll be back on Thursday recording our subscriber podcast for the generous folks funding our mahi. Otherwise, big up yourself. Love yourself. Kia kaha. Stay beautiful. Chur chur.